right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Will You Accept This Rant? If you are new here, we get together every week to talk about The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, or Bachelor Nation, what's going on there, and how it connects to our understanding of love and relationships in our world today. We learn a lot about love and relationships from pop culture and from popular media, so we got to talk about it. And we are joined today, as we have been for several weeks, which is just delightful, by our friend Allison from Northern Illinois University. We are so glad to have you back with us, Allison. Thank you so much for joining us. And I don't know about you guys, but well, I do know about you guys. We're all tired of this season. It sucks.
Super tired of this season. I think it has just been so dramatic that we haven't learned anything about the girls. So I'm not excited about really any of them. I'm just kind of bored.
Yeah, I don't feel like we're getting enough information about the relationships that are forming for us to talk about the relationships that are forming, which makes these rants consistently the same message over and over and over again of be a decent person in real life too, not just your relationship, which is good advice, but we've had 6 weeks of that. Don't be a jerk.
Normally, I mean, they were talking about hometowns in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know half of the names of these girls. I need the names still to pop up at the bottom of the screen for me because I don't know these people. Even if they go on a one-on-one date, I'm still like, I don't know who you are.
Right?
Or at best, like, I don't know anything about you. Do you guys remember that Serena P is from Canada? That hasn't even been time. Have we thought about, would Matt be allowed in the country to visit her? They're much better at handling COVID up there than we are. So I don't, have we even considered the fact that
we don't know anything? And I know, again, we've talked about bullies so much, but the bullies and everyone who's mean on the season is getting the airtime, and that is so frustrating. I mean, for God's sakes, what's her name was on Good Morning America.
Right. And let's leave her as what's her name.
Yeah.
Doesn't deserve any more airtime.
No.
So this episode started off with the conclusion of a 2-on-1, or however they do 2-on-1s now that we're secluded in a mansion.
Now that you can't abandon someone on a beach or abandon someone in the desert,
on a cliff.
You have to abandon them at the hotel.
Oh no.
Yeah, Kendall, you missed that.
Yeah.
There's been some good ones over the years. Yeah.
Yikes.
MJ and
Meredith. That was one of the best. Meredith.
Yeah. That was a train wreck.
Emma was like the embodiment of the telling, not showing, which I think, there's a good lesson for relationships. You can't just say that you're peace and harmony. You can't just say that you're love and light. You actually have to back it up with your actions. And I think we do see that in relationships, a lot of people just wanting to say, oh, I'm a good person, or say, oh, I care so much about my partner, but like, you got to do stuff too. Love is an action word as well. So you can take that away from MJ.
One of the things that she said multiple times, and mainly in her interviews, was, this is hard for me. I'm being vulnerable. Like, I showed Matt vulnerability. And just because you are speaking your beliefs and your truth does not mean that is vulnerable. And saying things because you feel like you need to put your foot down is not vulnerability. And people often hide behind that and say, I'm doing good because I'm being vulnerable. I'm being, brave through this situation because I'm being vulnerable. And when in reality, that is not what vulnerability is. It's, it's feeling that uncertainty, but taking that risk. And oftentimes, and we saw this with MJ, she just bulldozed over people in the name of vulnerability. Which is something that was really hard to watch.
Yeah. Another thing about MJ that I thought was so hard to watch too was just, she starts kind of tearing up, showing emotion, and just snaps out of it and says, oh, I was having a weak B-word moment. Like, it's fine if you're showing emotion. Like, that's okay. Like, you seemed actually kind of real in that situation. Maybe you were realizing how much of an actual B word you were being. I just hated that because it all relates back to men in society, they feel like they can't share their emotions at all. Like, and I think women have an easier time doing it, but there is still so much stigma around people showing emotions and people just, being upset, and it's kind of sad.
And I think instead of inviting men into emotional vulnerability, that women, often are encouraged on a deeper level to be more emotional and connect more. Like, as we've kind of broken down some of those gender stereotypes, instead of men being invited into that like emotional openness that women often are encouraged to or allowed to have, like women are feeling, in order to succeed, I have to shut down my emotions, or I have to be this certain version of strong, that men are placed into this box of not being emotional or not showing emotions. And I felt like we were getting that from Meredith of MJ. Now I'm just calling her Meredith now.
I was like, who is Meredith?
Now I'm trying to be strong by not having emotions, by not being like other girls, by being like one of the guys, by not being weak, quote unquote, instead of recognizing that, like you said, Allison, showing true vulnerability. Like you said, Kendall, recognizing where you've made a mistake, maybe where you've been wrong, and being open about that and honest about that. That's real strength. So it's not the absence of emotion, it's being able to be like really deeply in touch with accountability and with your own emotions. And we just didn't get any of that from MJ. Her strength was, in shutting down, not in opening up at all.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that she went home. I'm glad that it seems like she's kind of one of the last really mean girls. And I'm just glad that the bullies are slowly leaving. It's hopefully the season turns around and we get some sort of entertainment.
Hopefully we can start talking about some love stories and what healthy relationships look like.
Hopefully.
Soon. But I mean, I think, like I said, this season has been rough. I don't think we have to drag it on too long today, but I think one of the big things that jumped out to me, and if you guys have other things, feel free to jump in, but the big thing that jumped out to me was how Matt's date went down with Katie. I think it was put out, and I think it was a really cute idea, given that like they kind of had this strong friend vibe, which is probably why she went home. But they had this strong friend vibe. And so the date that was put together was Matt and Katie were going to hang out and prank Matt's best friend, Tyler C., which, like, fun idea, but how they went about it was really problematic to me.
Mm-hmm.
So what it set up, Tyler was going in for a massage, and they like had a fake actor set up to be the masseur, the masseuse, and then they were like had an earpiece in her ear telling her what to do. And basically what they told her to do was violate Tyler's body autonomy. They were telling him to, telling her to do things like, oh, like rub his nipples, or like straddle him, like get up on him. And I just kept thinking, like, and like you said, Kendall, when we talked earlier, if that was a girl, that would never have flown. And I was following along on Twitter, as I often do when I'm watching, and I was seeing other people share their experience of, I was sexually assaulted when getting a massage. I was sexually assaulted when getting a massage. This is triggering for me. I feel like people are making light of this. And it was just presented as a joke. And it just made me think how often men having their boundaries violated is not treated seriously, or is treated as like, oh, this is a hilarious prank for me to not respect my buddy's bodily autonomy. Do you guys?
Yeah.
Yes. Everything you said. I had so much hope for that sort of Matt, Katie, Tyler date. We had a really good moment with Tyler and Matt before that when they were playing pool. It was great to see two men talk about, marriage and their emotions and feelings forming with these women. That was great to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it just sort of felt icky watching, Tyler not know what's happening. And, he turns over at the end and realizes that it's Matt, and everybody sort of laughs it off. But, we've said that, if that happened, if it was, a woman friend of Matt's, or, the other way around, that it wouldn't have played the same. And those comparisons get made all the time, especially in Bachelor Nation, right? We know that every season there's going to be like a shirtless man. I mean, we've seen how many black boxes of men throughout this last 2 seasons. Like, we know that there's going to be some, would this be okay if it was women versus men? But I think this is one of those situations where, it really didn't play well either way.
No, I totally agree. And Lene, I think you said everything. That's why we were so quiet. But you stole the words right out of my mouth. But something that I had brought up before too is, yeah, it was completely inappropriate. But so many people, like you saw on Twitter, have been sexually assaulted as they've been getting a massage. What if that would have happened to Tyler? What if Tyler had that experience? What if he had been sexually assaulted when he was massaged in the past, and now this is happening? He could have been so triggered. It's ridiculous. And that double standard type of thing really does apply here. But even to him, it's such a violation.
We can't assume that just because he's a man that he wouldn't have been sexually assaulted in the past in this way. It's common courtesy to check in and make sure. Pranks can get so, I don't know, I feel like that's used as an excuse so often. And I can imagine people watching this video telling me, oh, come on, it was just a joke. Like, don't be such a curmudgeon, or other words that I've gotten called on social media as a feminist. Don't be so, such a stick in the mud. It's just a joke. It's just a prank. They all thought it was funny. But these kinds of jokes are what lead to these expectations of what men experience in the world, and lead to this expectation of men is that, oh, it's just funny when someone touches you without your consent. And that's what leads to so many men and boys having such a hard time coming forward when they experience sexual abuse, because it is treated as a joke in our society. It seems like the one last area that people really can joke about with impunity. Like, yes, people get away with all sorts of rape jokes and things like that, but especially when they're making jokes about men being sexually assaulted, people don't seem to get nearly as upset as they should. And that just felt like a continuation of that, of, okay, Tyler was okay with it. Tyler thought it was funny. It worked out in this situation. But portraying that as a joke, assuming that that Tyler would be comfortable with this without checking in first, it just perpetuates those ideas that lead to men feeling like they can't talk about this stuff, or feeling like what happened to them was just a joke. And so I was just disappointed to see that kind of stuff is still carrying on, and that people do still kind of feel that disregarding men's right to have a body boundary is funny or is okay. And we just fight so hard to make sure people understand that everyone deserves to have their own boundaries and to have that respected. And so to have that treated as a joke, especially when it's a man, that's just it. We're still stuck in that cycle, and that's really frustrating. That I can just think how many men and boys struggle to come forward because of exactly this kind of humor.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Season has shown us that what we think and what we watch sort of happening in the Bachelor bubble really does have an impact on how we operate as a society. Because I think we would all love to just think that this is, just inside the Bachelor bubble, and this is just what happens on TV shows. But things like the Tyler prank, things like all of the Mean Girls that we've been talking the majority of the season about, those things, and having those things shown on national television and having very little accountability for those things, are why those things are so prevalent in our society. And
exactly.
We're not talking about those things and not recognizing, even if we thought it was funny, even if, we like to watch the Mean Girl drama, recognizing it and the impact that it has, I think is really important. And unfortunately, that's been what we've talked about this season.
Yeah.
Well, it was another rough episode. It's been a rough season. To anyone who's sticking with us, we hope this is going to get better, or we're going to have to reevaluate. Maybe we're going to have to find a new show to rant about, although I'll still be watching The Bachelor. We'll be back next week. We hope that we're going to actually get to talk about some relationship lessons and not just talk about Heather next week. So we'll see what goes on, but regardless of what shenanigans Chris Harrison is pulling, we'll be here to break it down with you. We'll be here to rant about it, and we hope that you'll join us. So sound off in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Let us know if you think Heather went a little bonkers in quarantine, and let us know if you were impressed by that balancing pizza on her head trick. We weren't. So let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode. Let us know what you're looking forward to next week. Let us know who you think is going to win. We don't agree on this end, so let us know what you think, and we will be back to rant with you next week.